Hey everyone, welcome back to Solacene, the podcast designing a beautiful, sustainable, tactile future. My name's Aaron. I am our co-host of today, Solacene in-house poet and official episode opener.
I'm Alicia, and I am the other co-host, and today, for the first time ever, we have a third guest host in Ava. Hi, Ava.
Hello.
We are excited to have you. We're all super nervous, but it's going to be wonderful and fun, and we're going to talk about some of the cool things that you're up to, and really just talk about imagining a beautiful, sustainable, tactile future with a third brain involved, because usually it's just us pontificating. For a little intro, because I feel like people have heard hours and hours of me and Aaron talk, I'll introduce you a little bit, just for like some context. But Ava is a student, an artist, and a climate activist, I would say. And she is doing a lot of cool things in and around Montreal, and we're just like excited to, we'll probably get into it as we go through the questions and stuff today, but yeah, I don't want to do too many spoilers.
Long-time listeners might be thinking, you guys said before that you really don't like having interviews on podcasts, and we don't really, but we view it more as like a guest host.
Yeah.
So it's more like we'll all be offering our thoughts rather than us necessarily grilling Ava. And to begin with, Alicia has a lightning round of things.
Mainly because I feel like you two need to get to know each other. Ava is pretty much a friend. I'd say we're friends.
I would say so.
I don't want to like claim that, but we're friends.
And you and I are friends.
We're pretty good friends, actually, so need to connect the other two. So, are you ready for the lightning round? We're going to start with like would you rather sort of situation, and then we'll go into a few more like lightning questions. So, would you rather horses come back or trams come back?
So they both exist.
Come back into vogue.
Come back into vogue.
Yeah.
I think horses are kind of in vogue.
Okay.
I think country music's having a moment.
Mm-hmm.
Beyonce's most recent album cover had a horse on it.
Okay.
But you mean as forms of transport?
Yeah, I do mean as forms of transport, not just in like pop culture.
See, I don't think it has to be an either or. I don't necessarily think that trams and horses are competing for the same like market share in terms of infrastructure. But I guess trams are cleaner.
It's true.
I'm going to throw that one out there.
Okay. Ava, what do you think?
My immediate reaction was why not both as well. And
Okay. Good.
but horses kind of for outside of urban settings, you know, for going on excursions to neighboring places. Solitary trips, perhaps. And then trams for inside of a city, I think would be
Have you ever
really
ridden
lovely.
a horse?
Yeah, I grew up riding horses. Exposing myself as a horse girl.
As we can tell, but like you don't give off horse girl too much.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what that means.
You don't.
I would like to have ridden horses and be a horse boy, if that's the thing.
Okay, a cowboy.
Yeah, cowboy.
Maybe.
But trams, I think those are also really exciting. There is one very prominent road in Montreal running up the middle of the city that is like on a hill, and Alicia and I always stare up at it longingly, wishing that there were a tram line going down it, because it would just be soul, if nothing else. All the cars are going in the same direction for a very long way anyway, so anyway.
Give it a try.
I don't know if I've ever ridden a tram, but when I imagine them, it's something that is moving and you can just kind of spontaneously run and jump onto to go adventure. It's very adventurous to me.
Like a bus, you just jump on.
Yeah,
maybe.
I like that idea. It's kind of like in Divergent.
Yeah, it is.
You know, they jump on.
You have to be brave.
Yeah.
Dauntless, as it were.
Okay, enough about that. The next one, would you rather visit the North or the South Pole?
I love penguins.
Okay.
That makes it obvious.
Okay.
The North.
The North.
I'm joking. The South. Antarctica is also just a cool word.
It is more of a continent, whereas the North Pole, I don't believe it exists.
I looked on the Apple Maps and there's no land showing. I don't know what the situation is really, but I would also go to the North because it's a little mysterious to me, because I feel like I hear a lot less about it.
Might be there.
Yeah, I think there's disputes about like who owns it and stuff like that.
Okay.
So I think it might be difficult either way.
Yeah.
And I don't think they just let anybody on Antarctica either.
No, I doubt it.
But I would just like to do research, whatever that even means.
Mm-hmm.
Take some ice.
Take some ice home in your freezer. Okay,
Yeah.
cool. Would you rather only read fiction or nonfiction for the rest of your life? I know Aaron's answer because that's what you do now.
What?
Only read fiction.
Yeah, I read a lot of silly books, so that's my answer.
Okay, cool. Ava?
My answer is also fiction. I sometimes think nonfiction counts as fiction as well. So I think.
Can you elaborate on that?
Well, I think it's all like facts are a construction in some way, and history is telling stories as well. And knowledge comes from like our experience as subjective people, which is maybe controversial, maybe just an early morning thought. But I've heard also just people talk about the word fiction and like that nonfiction is not necessarily not a story or a narrative either.
That's super true. Yeah, that makes sense. I don't think it's just a morning thought.
No, I think it's a good thought, especially the types of nonfiction books which tend to sell are like narrativized. If that's just called like popular writing or whatever, like it's told like a story even if it's factual. So yeah, I say fiction.
Loophole. I love it. 2 more.
You didn't give any of yours.
It's because I am...
North Pole, fiction, and...
I think I'd visit Antarctica. I'd read fiction.
We could go there together.
Yeah, and yeah, trams. So like pretty similar. 2 more. Would you rather live on a farm with strangers or live in an apartment with all your friends? In a city.
Right now, city with friends. Just, I think the friends versus stranger part. Hopefully, if I was on the farm, the strangers would become friends.
True.
But I think I'd like being in a city.
Yeah.
Right now.
Yeah, I would say that too, mostly because I'm terrible at making friends. So I think the farm would just, like I would just kind of hide in a shed, probably end up sleeping on the hay, while they would all like try to invite me to things, and I would seclude myself.
Yeah, you'd be kind of like in Oklahoma. What was his name who lived just kind of creepily on the farm?
Yeah, sure, you're referencing a very unseen movie. But there's an old like Technicolor musical called Oklahoma. And it featured just a creepy guy who lived alone in a shack on the ranch, and he was always coveting the like farm owner's or the ranch owner's daughter.
Yep.
Okay.
So, yeah, I think his name was Curly. So
Curly. Yeah, I just think he had a funny name.
Old-timey like that.
Good. Makes sense. Okay, finally, we have a couple of questions. I will answer these ones. I'll stop just like taking a back seat and enjoying. The first one is, what is something that there would be more of in the Solacene and something that there'd be less of in the Solacene? I can go first.
Yeah.
In the Solacene, I think that there'd be, this is so like very clearly an early September thought, but more seasonal living, because I just love living with the seasons, going into hibernation in the winter and eating seasonally and all this jazz. And I feel like people are maybe moving in that direction a little bit with everybody getting into like the Burr months and such.
The what?
Have you heard of those?
No.
Because I only get my pop culture through like 3 vloggers because I don't really go online. But there's this one, she keeps referring to the Burr months, and I thought it just meant like Burr as in cold, but it's also Burr as in September, November, etc. The years. Anyway, I feel like people are getting more into it, and I think in the Solacene it'd be even more just like normal, completely normal. Once September hits, you start eating squash and stuff. And then for less of, I said less concrete because I've been very irritated by hard surfaces lately, just in general. Okay. I feel like they have no soul. They're just hard. They hurt when you fall. That also might be because I got like a really bad road burn this summer twice. And it was like the second time I was like, come on.
You mean while you were riding a bike?
Yeah, both times were while riding a bike.
What surface would you rather be riding on?
Dirt.
Okay.
Like dirt roads would be okay for me.
In the middle of, okay.
So is it mainly concrete on the ground?
Buildings as well, I think. Aaron likes a good brutalist building.
I like concrete, yeah. I think it's cold.
I think I'd rather just, like, bricks are fine.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But
Stone.
Yeah, stone's cool. Cobblestone streets even. I feel like I'd be fine with that, but...
You'd be fine riding on those?
No, the bike paths would still be dirt. The cobblestone would be for the trams and the horses, maybe.
You don't think a really nice, smooth, like like ramp? You don't like a good ramp?
No.
Oh.
I've never really admired a good ramp unless it's like a boardwalk.
I love a good ramp and those curling parking lot entrances.
You
Okay.
like those?
Your English roots are showing, I think.
Yeah, that's very
it's
UK,
very
isn't it?
British.
Yeah, I love big exterior parking lots. I don't like what drives in them and parks in them, but I like, I don't know, I just like, I want to lick them or something like that. With the seasonal thing, I think a good first step would be fixing the seasons on the calendar, because those are always incorrect.
It's true.
You know, people are like, oh, first day of autumn. It's been autumn for a month. But I think it's because they have to standardize it for the seasons. Obviously aren't the same everywhere.
Yeah,
But I
makes
think
sense.
what if it's like time zones, seasons?
Okay. Season zones.
Just a notion.
Because I really feel like it's still kind of summer. It's late summer. It's not officially autumn yet, but
I see a lot of orange leaves, so I would call it.
Okay.
And
fair.
there's, I think, a good maybe barometer is like, are there pumpkins in the grocery stores? The answer is yes. I'm fine with calling it autumn now.
I think the first day I could smell fall was maybe 2 weeks ago. It's just a slight cold and a distinct scent. I don't know how to
Okay, fair.
describe it.
No,
exactly,
I mean,
but
I came home from work a couple weeks ago and I was like, did you smell it?
Did you smell it?
Yeah, a couple weeks ago.
Exactly. I was like, no, but I think I'm just being resistant because I didn't get to enjoy summer as much as I wanted to.
Oh, really?
Hence I think it was the road burns. They made me like have to be inside, which I didn't like. Okay. I rambled. Ava, do you want to answer?
Yes, I noted kind of abstractly less ideological monocultures and stress and more playfulness, laughter, and like opposite of ideological monocultures, plurality. And something including in that I think would be normalizing knowing more names of other species and like that being a part of education. So learning the names of like the plants in the area that you live in and that being normal and in maybe many languages or a few languages.
Yeah, I think that's super.
Mm-hmm.
I always picture that when I picture the Solacene because obviously most people in history when they like create a utopia, they're like, okay, it's going to be this religion, this ideology, this economic structure. But obviously, if you've listened to like any other episodes, we just talk a lot about how it's not like a prescription. It's just kind of a way of being. It's like, yeah, in the Solacene, there's like a lot of ways of thinking and just like way more open-minded. And as long as everyone's kind of fitting into that kindness and fun and just like caring for the planet and caring for people, everything's welcome as long as it kind of fits into those, I think. And I think that's universalizable.
I mean, we try and keep from religion on the podcast, period.
Yeah, we
but
have
whimsy, I like
never
whimsy. That's a good
Whimsy's good.
mention. More whimsy in the Solacene.
I like that.
In the world. How can we embody whimsy? Whimsy and plurality.
Mm-hmm.
That could be like the names of someone's cats. Whimsy, plurality. You know what I mean? So like someone who's really learned and like quirky, that could be their cats. I don't really have an answer to the question. That's why I was kind of stalling.
Okay, that's okay. Thanks for chipping in, I suppose. Okay, this is a jump scare question for all of us because Erin just posed it this morning, and it is, what would be like a Solacene social media, or like what's an iteration of a social media that's like actually not harmful?
Yeah, I mean that wasn't quite my question. Mine was more of a prediction, so it doesn't have to be it doesn't have to be wishful thinking, but I think that's a good question too, because I kind of woke up thinking about it. Like, it seems as if I don't have social media, but it seems as if there's been this kind of equilibrium that's settled between like respectively Twitter or X and Instagram and TikTok and Facebook, where it's not so much that one is king, it's just that people use them for different things, but almost everyone has them. So you have like TikTok is like people's entertainment, and Twitter is kind of where people get news, I suppose, or follow their celebrities, even secondhand, like, oh, I heard this on Twitter. Or Instagram is maybe where people keep up with their friends, and Facebook is just like where they see their grandma post or professional stuff, kind of. So because people always talk about these websites being in flux, but it feels like it's been this way for don't know, 3 years or something like that. And I was wondering, kind of, if anything were to come along and like disrupt that, it would need to be either doing one of those things better than the current ones do, or for some reason making people be online in a different way. You know what I mean?
Okay.
But I guess it's kind of an annoying question, so we don't have to answer that.
I feel like something comes to mind. Yeah. Maybe because people in the last year or so, I feel like have been really into voice memos. I don't know if you've noticed that. You don't communicate, so yeah, that's fine. But I've been really into voice memos. A lot of my friends have been. So I feel like maybe some kind of voice memo social media where you... I don't know how it would work.
Is that called Clubhouse? Is that what that is?
Maybe. But something like that that's more mainstream, like a Twitter.
Why do you do that?
I don't know.
Is it just easier? You don't have to type?
Oh, do you mean why do you use voice memos?
Yeah.
Oh. I think when I use voice memos, it's because it's easier for me to get something out when I'm talking or I'm walking, and it's nice to just express the emotion through my voice with friends, and it's usually with friends that I do that, or just people close to me. Sometimes actually acquaintances who I'm talking to for the first time. But I think I imagine a Solacene social media being oriented towards bringing people together in person, so like making that easier. So maybe it could be something like you put out a voice memo for a gathering or where you are and people just come.
Yeah.
Maybe that's way too crazy, but
slightly security risk, but I think it'll be fine.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Yeah, true.
I'm standing on the corner of here and here with hot dogs.
Come
and get one before they last.
Yeah. I feel like sometimes Buns, like the online trading platform, it's a little sketchy like that. Like someone was like, okay, on the corner of this and this street, I saw it like a couple days ago, there were 3 abandoned sewing machines. My friend like sends it to me. She's like, go and get it. And I was like, I feel it's going to be like a frenzy of people running to try and get these like free abandoned things.
Or it could just be someone moving and they have it on the sidewalk for a moment, but then Buns quickly jumps on it.
Yeah, sometimes it gets a little sketchy like that.
You bunsed one of our plants recently, right?
Yeah, yesterday, because we bought a jasmine plant and it just died like immediately. And then I gave it to the person. The person rocks up and they're like, I know you. And I was like, oh yeah, I know you too. Like we both volunteered somewhere together for like a year. But it was just funny because I was like, I saw their name when they messaged me, but I was like, there's lots of people with this name in the world. But yeah, it was funny. Anyway, and they were like, it looks alive to me. But all the leaves fell off.
Some conflicting opinions on our...
So anyway, we got rid of it.
Horticulture on that.
Yeah. Okay, so to the main event, I suppose.
Whatever.
Whatever.
Sounded combative. I didn't mean it to. Okay.
I don't care. Do what you want.
Fine.
So maybe we'll just like flow through the questions, but the first one, for those playing along at home, what is inspiring you to take action lately, and how has the internet played a role in your relationship to these sources of inspiration, if at all? It feels like an essay question. When I was trying to write these, they always had like 4 clauses, so...
Yeah, I don't know why...
I'm sorry, it was just trying to get the essence across.
Yeah.
Because usually when we ask questions to each other, it's very like... just 3 words, and you kind of telepathically connect it, but because I was trying to like communicate with Ava, I was like, I need to get all the different elements. I hope it came across well.
No, it did.
The regular questions will just be like, bugs, ?
Like literally though, that's not an exaggeration. Bugs in the Solacene, yes or no?
Something that's inspiring me lately is this sounds very like self-centered because I am, the degradation of my own memory. Let me put it like that. Because I realize I don't retain information anywhere near as well as I used to. I think I was trying to summarize a movie to you, which I had watched within about 7 days, and I struggled to do so. Or just like trying to learn new words. Usually I'm quite good at that, but I have been finding it more of a reach as I've gotten older, and I'm only 25, so I'm like, it's not actually a kind of cognitive decline to do with aging or anything like that. It's almost entirely dependent on like lifestyle and how one treats one's brain. I think people always talk about memory as if it's like innate or immutable, just like, oh, you know, my memory's terrible. And they say it as if it's apart from them, but there's a reason. It's because most people's is probably bad now, at least compared to like 20 years ago or like 2,000 years ago. So yeah, that's been inspiring me. And as to how the internet has played a role, it is the cause. So I've noticed it's just like a one-to-one correlation that the less time I spend on the internet, the better I remember things. So
Okay, so I feel like the Solacene lesson from that would be,
if people care about remembering, like I think the modern world makes it less and less important that you do so, but I think it's I don't know, like intrinsically valuable and impressive when someone can memorize like a verse or a deck of cards. People do that.
I've been thinking a lot about this as well in myself. I feel like I have a hard time also retaining information, but then when I become more self-conscious about it, then it's harder for me to retain it because I'm thinking about retaining it. But I'm curious, like, what is inspiring about the degradation?
No,
for
I
you,
guess
the
it's like
component?
that. It's more like my prior self inspires me because I remember I used to be able to, like, not quite recite books or poems, but very much remember the gist of them months or years after the fact. And I don't know if it's probably because young minds are more impressionable and I'd just been exposed to less of those things, but that's what, like, Alicia and I went to see a show called The Death of Homer a few months ago, and it was a storyteller on a stage with a stick and no other props beside a guy on a piano just punching away notes every few minutes. And he just regaled us for like 35, 40 minutes with this kind of scripted, kind of improvised story / sermon. And I find that it's just really impressive because he wasn't reading off of anything and he never referred to anything and it sounded naturalistic. And yeah, I like that.
okay. It kind of reminds me of what you were saying about like being more pluralistic of like right now we live so in just like the moment, but not in like a mindful way. It's just like we're just getting by like second to second. But maybe if we like had a bit more consciousness and like desire to know people and know things around us, we'd be more aware and like remember. Because I think about how often at work I like meet someone and then like immediately forget their name or something.
We act like it's disposable.
Yeah, but it's just not. And like I feel like if we want to build a better world, you'd be a bit more mindful of like the people around you and the things happening. Another example, I suppose, in this vein is I feel like I often see posters when I'm walking up and down like the main street in Montreal. And then I'm like, oh, that's cool. That's like a cool protest or event or something happening. And then I just like forget a few seconds later. And if I wanted to actually be an involved citizen, I might have like retained it and then attended or reached out or something like that. So,
but there's also that kind of crutch. This is why I say the modern world makes it less important. Most people just, you just take a photo. And I do that most of the time. Like if I have a passing thought, like, oh, I want to consider that more later or look into that, I have a running note on my phone where I just have a list of things like that. But I want it to just be mental, I guess.
Yeah, that makes sense.
On a note with your memory feeling like we talk about how it's something separate from us. I just learned the other week in a cognition class about superior autobiographical memory, and it's this phenomenon where people are able to remember every single day of their lives and what they did that day, essentially, and they've been tested by like asking what random days what the weather was like, and they can recall. They can maybe say, "Oh, I remember this day was really hot," or some like they were asked like in what a specific week in a year, maybe 20 years ago, when it rained, and they were able to determine the day that it rained a lot by the days that were warmer and remembering these moments in their lives that were kind of salient. And it's like that for continuously, and they don't have to try. They're asked about a day and then they're just seeing it. And then my professor made an interesting point that I guess it's kind of just this notion that our memory has this ability by the associations that we make with our senses, but then it's seemingly so vast, like the potential of what we can hold in our memory, but just why there are differences according to like what we actually do remember. It was just a really wild experience watching that video, and I'm jealous. I'm very jealous.
Yeah, it sounds
of that.
impressive and envy-inducing. What's the meme about, like, oh, my toxic trait is thinking that I could attain that state just by practice.
Yeah.
It's definitely not true, but
No.
it's nice to have that hope.
That's cool though. I love learning about the diversity of our brains, because you sometimes think everyone's is the same as yours, and then you hear this and you're like, oh wow.
Yeah.
But we've also talked about sense being tied to memory before, and how that makes the internet or a lot of screen time, not to keep hammering on that, but such dead time, because there's nothing to it.
Makes sense. Okay. You go for it.
Yeah. I was going to say, when I was thinking about this question, I just feel these days where I am in life is such a momentous sea of new people closely tied to school and what I'm studying and being in a university environment. And I feel like it's an easy answer, but I just draw so much inspiration from the people around me and professors, my friends, people I learn about through school. Every day maintain like an openness to meeting new people and listening to them, because I think I'm realizing a philosophy I hold is that if you listen to people, they'll kind of tell you everything that you don't know or you may need to know. And yeah, other than that, some music. I've been listening to a lot of Joni Mitchell this summer.
Okay.
And other podcasts. I draw a lot of, also Solacene, of course.
That's why I asked the question. I wanted to. I'm joking.
But yeah, lots of things. But I think I've been trying to teach myself to go out just outside and feel awe about the things around me. And I think because I share a sentiment that the more time I spend not feeling the things around me, the less I feel like connected. So I guess just taking inspiration from things I see.
That's super cool.
Things.
Yeah, I think like one of our future questions that we were going to talk about later, but I'm going to answer it now because it like relates to this, was about what's a tool for like being more present and being like a better long-term activist, because I feel like a lot of people deal with burnout, and my answer to that was like being more in your senses, being more like present. And I feel like that's what you're doing, which is really lovely, because when we just are too in our heads, which is easy when you're in school, like I'm really happy to know that you're not just like functioning on that kind of higher plane. It's way more sustainable if you have kind of ways to ground yourself in the moment, in nature, and also just like in the built environment, and also with people. Because people are so cool, and I love that mindset of like everyone can teach you something. And also I liked what you said, like they'll tell you what you need to know. Like I've never really thought about that, but it's so true. You just need to like hold space and listen, which is fun and inspiring. Lovely. I don't know, I feel really that's really cool.
Thank you.
I guess I'll answer the question. What's inspiring me is my younger self. And I feel like it's also really funny that the three of us had like these kind of more abstract things. I was originally thinking everyone was going to say like a movie or like just, you know.
You thought I was going to say that, didn't you? You thought I was going to say Invasion of the Body Snatchers.
Well,
in 1979, maybe.
But yeah, my younger self. Because I feel like if we look to our past, that's like same thing as you said, pretty much, of like your old self that was really good at memorizing or just like retaining information. But mine was more in the sense of like when I was a kid, I really felt like the world was my oyster. And lately I've been feeling like, oh no, I don't have any time left. I'm so old, all these things. But then I'm like, it's just not true. And if you start getting in that mindset, I feel like you're going to spiral and just not act and kind of maybe fall into a existing stream. I guess it's kind of the way of like I had that old like neural pathway, which was like, I can do anything. But then I started fostering this new one of like, no, you need to choose something secure. And that's like becoming the easier path my brain's going down. But I'm going to start making an effort to like go back to that old one since it's already there. And I feel like overall, if people and activists and just like society as a whole didn't think in such like limited terms, we'd be able to maybe do a bit more, because we all think, maybe even just within our lifespan, we're like, I only have 80 years. If I can't solve climate change in this time, or if I can't solve this thing that I'm passionate about, what's the point? Maybe I'll just like live a comfortable life. But I think if everyone thought about living a comfortable life, we would have never made progress. So like being uncomfortable and being optimistic and fun and open-minded would be super rad.
We would have never went to the moon if everyone just sat around on their couch. You know what my favorite thing about young Alicia was?
What?
It's that that journal that you kept. Do you remember that?
When we first met?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That you showed me after the fact, and it was because we met on a trip to Mexico, and Alicia had never been to Mexico, nor had I. It was very new for all of us, and it sounds, for one thing, not to disparage 16-year-old Alicia's writing, but it sounds like the thoughts of a 9-year-old in the best way, though.
Thank you.
In a great way. It's full of exclamation marks about very mundane things. But I think that's a very lovely point of view to hold. But now you're never impressed by anything.
I feel that's not necessarily true, but
what was it? It was like the airplane peanuts or something.
I was super excited about like the food on the airplane, and
you're like, this was the best. They were the best ever.
Yeah, exactly. And getting really excited about like the drives and stuff and things that were just insanely mundane.
Meeting me, I think I'm referencing that.
You're referenced in there several times, if I'm being honest. I was very Dear Diary, just met this boy. Wow. Look at his hair and his style. I remember marking on your style in my journal.
My red t-shirts.
And in hindsight, the style was very just like footballer 2016.
It was very just what my parents bought me 2016.
But that was exactly my taste at the time. So thanks to your parents, I suppose, for dressing you that way. Forever going on tangents.
What was the second part of the question? How the internet played a role in your young self?
Yeah, but I think in how the internet played a role in your like relationship to these things. But I feel like because we all answered more like real life, it didn't make a difference. But I was thinking more if we had answered movies, or I guess in the case of music and stuff, it's like at the moment how we're exposed to a lot of these things is through the internet.
Yeah.
And maybe we should try and find ways to get recommendations, or maybe I guess act a bit more locally in our art consumption.
I was going to say that, like, the internet puts me onto a lot of new films that would never have heard of, but that's not true at all, because before the internet, like, people who were enthusiasts about things, they found ways of discussing this.
Yeah.
So
you even just got a membership to like the Cinémathèque Québécois.
Yeah, that was going to be my Solacene recommends memberships.
Yeah.
I feel like memberships are so, it sounds a little bit exclusive, but it doesn't necessarily have to even be like, it could be a free membership, like to a library. I love having a card with my name on it.
Oh yeah.
So yeah, try and do that.
Sign me up, he says.
Yeah, sign me, whatever it is.
Yeah.
Weight Watchers, I'll do it.
But I think I was also thinking about, okay, this is another Solacene recommends, and it's happens that Ava's here, but I mean, I would have recommended this either way. Ava recently founded a workshop series. What would you like refer to it as?
Yeah, we've been saying project, workshop, speaker series.
Yeah. And I was able to attend, and the first time you had this artist who I'd never heard of, and then this woman is talking, and I felt like this is like low-key what inspired me to like think about my younger self. I was like, wow, these are all the things that I used to think all the time concerning like when I started working in fashion. I was like, the clothes, like they're on you all the time. She was even going to like this pseudoscience about how like there's different frequencies of fabrics and how they can like affect you, and I was just so in love with this. And she was wonderful, and I was like, wow, I would have never found her had I not attended this workshop. And I was just like happy about the opportunity, and it was so cool to like bring these people forward and present them to a audience of people who were like interested. Super cool. Yeah, good work.
Thank you
I
so
was really
much.
impressed.
I'm so like hearing that connection that you made with yourself from listening to the speaker is so special. Tina has the most beautiful mind, I find, and I relate a lot to, I guess, what both of you said about thinking about your younger selves and, I don't know, just being able to see beauty in the world and feel like in this frenzy of taking in that beauty and wanting to just almost automatically wanting to make something with it and making all these connections. And I think recently I've been feeling that coming back, and working on this project has been definitely a manifestation of that coming back, and I'm just kind of holding on to it for dear life now. So
yeah,
and then to hear how it reaches people is really amazing as well.
oh, so good. I love it. Okay.
Okay, I will read off the second question. I have it only in shorthand. I didn't write down Alicia's paragraph. So it just says, community building and hands, actions inspiring transition to future? Question mark. So I think we can all fill in the blanks with whatever words we choose. It's about we're going to mention each like an act of community or togetherness or an event that we think is an example of the pathway to a sustainable, tactile, beautiful Solacene, something like that. I had an anti-example because it's just what came to mind. Because I think it was yesterday or 2 days ago, I got an email from McGill University in Montreal, which of which we are all alumni, or Alicia and I love to pretend to be. But on that note, I do like the university as just like the city's hub of ideas, regardless of whether you are paying tuition. I think it's one of its functions anyway. So I am fine receiving emails from them. As you know, actually, one of my goals is to become on as many university like mailing lists as possible, because it makes me feel very educated.
Very learned.
But the subject caught my eye. Usually I just delete it automatically. And it said, consultation committee on sustainability and social responsibility. And the email is about a committee on the board of governors, which has been told by the president, because of a lot of pressure from protesters over the last summer, to explore the question of divestment from companies that derive lots of primary revenue from military weapons. And the email says, to inform its work and ensure it benefits from a wide range of community perspective, it invites us to share our views on this web form that it had linked. And I was kind of, as I say, it got my attention, the subject and the opening, and I thought, oh, they're going to have a town hall thing to finally air out these grievances. But they kind of relegated it to a Google form. And that's why I say it's an anti-example of like, it could have been cool. Like it could have been interesting, but I think making it digital and so kind of like, now it feels perfunctory, as if it's just, well, we kind of had to do this, so, submit your things here.
Yeah, there's no accountability when it's online.
Exactly.
There's so much, like, I guess, lip service in, like, the digital space of just, like...
It's so easy.
Yeah, because you can let people submit emails all day long. They can just go to your spam. It doesn't matter.
But if someone is shouting at you in the town hall...
Well, we know the president of McGill was the president of another university we went to, and he was basically, like, booed out for not divesting. And for, like, he was booed out of... Like, I don't know. I feel like he was bullied out of presidency.
Yeah, I don't want to use our vast platform to turn all our listeners against him, but
we're against him. He followed us here.
We're vehemently against him, and he's one of the Solacene villains, indeed. No, but it's just like, as you say, lip service. We have to have this committee, and we'll try and take community involvement. It's a podcast, but I'm doing the air quotations. So it's just, I just think that would have been so fun to attend, even just like with some popcorn to watch the fireworks, because it's a very heated conversation, be it about military stuff, or I was thinking about like climate divestment, because that was a big deal when we were in our undergrad as well, under the same president, as you mentioned.
Yeah, I liked it. Again, I feel like even if you weren't here, I would have kept like using these examples, so it's just funny that that even happens to be here. But at the beginning of your speech, you were saying, yeah, this is funded by like the sustainability fund, but we don't align with like kind of where the money comes from.
Yeah.
I don't want to like speak for you, but maybe you wanted to say something about that. I thought it was a cool project to like take the money and like give it good purpose almost.
Yeah. Well, I wanted to make sure we were acknowledging like what was happening with the protests on campus, because we all don't feel like the McGill administration has handled the situation well at all, and it causes us to feel pretty ashamed and like embarrassed of our school. And one of the artists in our preliminary meeting brought it up, like asked about our relationship to the university with our project and the funding, because if there was like involvement, they would probably prefer not to be associated with the university at all, which is really unfortunate, you know, that it would be keeping away these perspectives that we want to bring in and hear from, and really talented people who are doing amazing work. Because we're talking about activism, we want it to be a safe space and be talking about ideas and ways of learning that are counter to sources of, at the root issue of like ecological issues, which includes colonialism and like extractivist ways of seeing the world. And so that's closely tied to everything going on, and the way McGill has responded, I think, is the opposite of what we're trying to cultivate. And we wanted to make that clear to people participating. And we're all still learning, like we're really we're not perfect, but we're trying to incorporate that.
Super cool. I just thought it was cool. I love when people take money from kind of like, I don't know, take money and redirect it. I remember learning about those people who they buy up land or buy up shares in a company until they like own the company, and then they're like, okay, shutting it down.
That's
stuff like that.
my mission in life.
Yeah.
But I guess it sounds kind of like weird or cynical or grown up or something, but the older, as time passes, I am more interested in where money comes from and where it goes, really concrete things like that. Divestment or like those kind of protests are not usually something that I'm all that interested in, but I find divestment is very, it's a relevant cause, so.
For sure. Okay, away from Aaron's anti-example, I'll go quickly. There's an organization called Last Generation Canada, and they've been having these like game night. They call them Protest and Play, and it's happening in Ottawa, so it's not in Montreal, so we can't attend. But it's just at like a board game cafe, and everyone meets up and plays board games, and then just like strategizes on how to like take down corporations and how to plan protests and these things. And I was like, that's so fun and in person, because I think especially through COVID, a lot of the climate activism, and I was part of a feminist organization during COVID for like a couple of years, and it was all completely digital, and it felt so vapid. And it's okay, we can put out as many Instagram posts, and we published anthologies and we published these like courses, but it was just so ethereal. And I'm sure it like laid a good foundation for certain people, but it was much less easy to calculate and see. But I think when people are coming together and just like doing something kind of mundane, like playing board games, you get to know the people you're working with. And I think then the strategy you come up with can be a lot more effective because you know one another and you're like bumping ideas against each other. And yeah, I just thought it was really lovely and fun and like accessible even. I feel like a lot of organizations that are planning protests or planning some kind of action, it might be like really hard to even show up to an in-person meeting because you're like, you don't know the vibe. Like, especially this organization, I was always a little spooked by them because they're pretty intense. But it's like, oh, this seems fun. You could show up and just like, even if you just go and play Monopoly, like, at least you're there and you can get a feel for it.
Do you think that's the point of the board games, is to try and entice people in like ice cream?
I don't know, maybe.
Help them know each other? Or maybe it's like the symbolism of the board games having their competition and their strategies and their like winners and losers. So you're trying to brainstorm like ideas for some new group that you're putting together at the same time as you're playing Risk, or like you're talking about like toppling a government as one does, and like as you do so, you push the final Jenga block and it comes down. Or checkmate, yeah.
On all their posters, I originally just thought it was just chess because all their posters just
Wow.
have people playing chess, and I was like, that would be so meta. Kind of like in what's the movie? It has Timothée Chalamet in it. I think it's Wes Anderson.
Oh, the French Dispatch.
French Dispatch, when they're like the communists and they're all playing chess, and I was like, this. It reminds me of that, but in kind of a more modern way.
Okay.
But it was cool, fun.
Because it's not in black and white.
It's not. No.
Yeah, I like the sound of that kind of gathering style. Yeah. Very cinematic and moody. I actually had a hard time thinking of an answer to this question. I've been so wrapped up in my project and in school. I feel like I've just been, as a consequence of that, thinking the most about how art can be a form of activism, kind of in a selfish way, because I'm trying to do more art in my life and thinking about my career after graduating. So a lot of that has been learning about different artists and the work that they do, and just I've been less engaged, honestly, with local events around climate action. But yeah, hopefully I think it's just a phase right now.
No, I think that's a phase that I'm in 90% of the time, so that's super valid. I just happen, I think, at the moment to be in one where I'm like, oh, I feel like September I'm always like curious of what's going on because like all the students are back in the city and stuff. But like 9 months of the year I'm probably just like doing my own thing, and I've been thinking a lot about like art as activism as well, because I'm involved in a co-op that's starting up in Montreal, where it's like a bunch of artists, mainly people who are doing like upcycling for fashion, and it's just like I never thought that was the path I was going to take, and sometimes I feel obligated to go back and like research something or do something a lot more like scientific, but I'm like, no, we need to tell stories and we need to like represent our feelings through art. I think is really important, especially as a coping mechanism, and it doesn't have to be like anything beautiful or perfect. It can just be like just a pure outlet. And I think that's really cool and super nice and very tactile as well, because it's not just living up in your head. It's like getting it out on paper, which is neat.
Yeah.
One more thing on that topic, because the next question is, what are some less obvious practices that you do or would like to do as an outlet or habit for being engaged in long-term activism?
So many words. Trying to meet the word count.
I met it and exceeded it. And then, anyway. And I think for me, my answer was just like a daily artistic ritual. And I've been getting better at it, like not 100%, but I started scrapbooking, and it made me so much more aware of the materials passing through my hands every day. And it's a very like practical artistic practice, because it's like making me more aware of like the waste and stuff. But it's been so fun to just make little like scrapbooks with like maybe a receipt that I received, or like packaging. I ordered a pair of pants. I never like order new clothes, but my sister was like, you need these pants. They're called Alicia Sailor Pants, which is my name, and I also love boats. So I was like, okay, I'll order them. They're wonderful. But then I like took the label that like came on them, scrapbooked that. I was like, it was cool. And it's like fun to kind of process, and not in like a condemning way of like, oh, look at all this waste. It's like, okay, I'm looking at the waste. I'm noticing it. Therefore, I want to reduce it, but I'm also like making something kind of nice and cute out of it.
I think it's also something about scrapbooking being just for you and not, like you don't, I don't think, have ambitions of it becoming a side hustle, as it were.
Exactly.
Actually,
whereas every other one of my hobbies has.
Even if it's creative, it does. I mean, you can still take enjoyment in it, but it does start to feel like a bit of a job. Actually, we're considering for these podcasts like making a collage scrapbooky thing for the thumbnails. But there's no. I don't think we really have the drive for that.
We used to try and do a painting for every week, and neither of us can paint. We can't draw. We are not artistic. Well, sorry, speaking for myself.
Yeah.
And so I'd spend like hours and hours and hours on a painting, and it would turn out like
it would be garbage.
It'd be garbage.
But I think people see it in the attempt. Like your heart wasn't in the right place. Let me put it like that.
But yeah,
I was gonna bring you a painting as a gift, but I didn't finish it yet, so
thank you.
It's very small and simple. I've been doing these like ink paintings.
Wow. The thought that counts.
I
That's
don't know.
wonderful.
Yeah.
That's all that
I
counts.
made you bread as a gift, so we'll exchange. I'll
Yeah.
give you the bread.
It's a whole loaf.
Oh,
What?
I wanted to.
What?
Let's not go there.
well, we're gonna- Aaron got home. He's like, bread and soup. Yum. I was like,
Oh.
no. I'll make you another loaf.
I am so moved. Thank you.
You're welcome.
So you better
I
eat more.
I will use it for toast.
Wonderful.
Mhm.
King and queen of derailing conversation. Sorry.
Oh, I have an answer for this one.
Cool.
For the question 3. Activist is defined as a person who campaigns to bring about political or social change. So I felt like the word campaigns, or the verb, was doing a bit of heavy lifting there to try and describe myself as an activist. But I think if I were to kind of try and soften that title, it's already been kind of weakened in like the social media age.
Oh yeah,
Maybe.
for sure.
I would just say activism is maybe like, it's a very passive like definition, but kind of making manifest or visible one's beliefs, something like that. Wearing one's heart on one's sleeve about what one cares about. So I would say something I would like to do is go to either to listen or to read at like writing or poetry get-togethers.
Okay.
Because the first time I met Ava, she was reading a poem. That was Ava, right? Yeah.
So that was in fact it. Yes.
At a thing which Alicia was speaking at, and I'd never really like heard people speak poetry to crowds, but I think it's very vulnerable and just like exciting. It's kind of cool.
Mm-hmm.
Super cool.
Yeah. So that was my thing.
Mine is I really related. I find, but a little bit more abstract again. But my practice of trying to, when I'm commuting day to day, or if I have time to go study somewhere, of just being like, okay, I'm open to meeting whoever is there and learning about them. And I think part of that is, this is the one that's not as related to what Aaron said about reading poetry. But I guess I try to like follow my gut in terms of where I'm supposed to be during the day or where I'm going, because I think a lot about how where we are in space, there are so many options, but that can determine who you run into and what you're thinking about and all of these things. So I like to just, when I'm deciding between cafes to study, for example, like which one feels like the right place, and it kind of is a gut thing, and I'm like, okay, I'm gonna go there between like the normal places where I go. And kind of sounds a little silly, but I think that can extend to thinking about the times that you spent, the things, the commitments that you spend your time in, kind of remembering the intention of behind what you're doing, the feelings behind it, the purpose, and keeping that close to when you're making decisions between things. So I guess I'm just one to always say following your heart, and I think that can trickle into your day-to-day in significant ways. But also just kind of, that's really close to emotionality. I've been thinking a lot about emotions. I'm studying I'm studying cognitive science, and it's a lot of learning about the brain and thinking and these very heady things. So I'm almost kind of constantly trying to fight that, or almost counteract that with how can I be a feeling individual. And I feel like that's kind of a theme of what we've been talking about, and I think doing more artistic practices helps me with that, and allowing yourself to be moved is really important.
Yeah, I feel like especially in a city, like what you're saying about being more mindful of where you're going and spending your time, it's easy to just like go to the same cafe every day and never talk to anyone. But I've noticed that I was thinking about this. It's funny that you brought this up, because I was thinking about it. I was like, I don't know if it would ever fit into the podcast, but like it fit in here perfectly. You're really good at like making people feel like being approachable, I suppose, because I've noticed that like some cafes around here, you like know the baristas, and then even like Aaron and I the other day, we were at a cafe.
Carrot cake.
We were eating the carrot cake.
I was.
And then we decided like that's when we decided, okay, we're going to have guests in the podcast. That was like the moment that we had it. Then we walk out and we see this person and we're like, we had discussed the people we wanted to be on, like the first two, see one of them just like sitting there. And then we keep walking and then you're sitting there. And I was like, okay. Like the universe was like confirming to us, I suppose.
Yeah, I mean, you have to...
It was very, and then, but I'm not like good at being open. So I was like, we should go ask them. Then I was like, no, I got too nervous. I'm like, they were both people that we knew. We knew Ava. We knew the other person. And it was just like, I don't know.
Whimsical.
Whimsy, serendipity. But you have to like, you know, put yourself out there or whatever.
Yeah, and you're really good at that. And I admire that in you.
I like the gut feeling message. I feel like we don't have much. It's like because I want to, basically. Like, because that's what... You don't actually think that to yourself very often during the day.
No.
It's more like because I have to or because I have to be there. But like, I'm going to go this way. And then in doing so, you narrowly avoid like a car crash.
Yeah.
Or you find
to be
dark.
Yeah.
Who knows?
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I have this whole complex about people thinking that I'm just too nice and like appearing one-dimensional. But I would take... I don't know. I don't think... I've never been told... Actually, I've been told that.
That you're too nice.
Yeah, that it's just like, you know, if you're not... It can be seen as like not having depth of character sometimes, but I don't know. Be kindness.
Yeah. I feel like it's probably the best insult of being called too nice. People usually call me too nice because I'm like spineless and don't say no. And they're like trying to like preserve my well-being. They're like, you need to say no to people or you need to like set boundaries. And I feel like moving in that direction of setting boundaries, but can never be too kind to people. I don't know. I don't think I've ever been so kind and I've like regretted it. I don't think. If it was actually out of a place of like wanting to help. If it was out of a place of like ego, maybe. But like anyway, maybe that's like too much to end an episode on, of going into like ego and our identities.
Sure.
Maybe for another day. Cool.
I'll take the blame.
Yeah. Is there anything else anyone wanted to share or say before we wrap up?
Do you have any jokes? No.
I did hear a joke, but I forget the first part, and the first part is what makes it really funny.
So we'll end
okay,
on
but
that.
I'll give you... Do you want to hear it?
Yeah, we need
without the first.
That's going to be our new tradition, ending on a joke.
And
Although I
joke.
also
Didn't
have
you
a
have
poem.
a poem?
Yeah.
I was going to say.
We can go joke then poem.
Okay. In
Okay.
true Shakespeare style.
Okay, the joke is who's the coolest person in the hospital? And there's one answer, I forget that one, and then it's like, who's the second coolest person in the hospital? Hip replacement guy.
Because he's hip.
Yeah.
Okay.
But also I just want to
dark.
I just want to extend my thanks to both of you. I think you're so smart and inspiring, and it's such a dream to be collaborating with you and in your presence today. So thank you so much for
The new
inviting
tradition
me
will be
on.
joke, compliment, poem. And then we'll like enforce that with all subsequent guests.
Thanks, Eva. It was very nice to have you. And yeah, Aaron, bring us out.
Jeez, so much pressure. Okay. Forget me, whispers the new act, upon the moment of its doing, direct and suggestive, unheard by others, the words themselves imbibed and embalmed to be forgotten. Touch me, heal me, devote yourself, forget me. And for an epoch we obey, until, will, the breeze we've forgotten to enjoy, his lonely rays of sun, the very birds themselves, conspire to remember us.
Bravo. Bye, everyone. See you next week.